Alright, what's up guys? So for today's online automotive safety course, we're going to be talking about how to keep you and your car safe and your car running well and all that stuff. So we're going to be talking about how to check your oil, how to check your oil in your transmission, your engine oil, your coolant levels, and then we're going to be talking about tires and what's wrong and what's right and when you should be changing your tires and what the optimum tire pressure is and all that good stuff. So let's get right into it. Okay, so the first one we're going to be talking about is tires. So we're going to be talking about what the tread should look like on your tire versus what it shouldn't look like and when you should change your tires. So the good rule of thumb is you have a penny, which you can't really see the penny, but you have a penny and you use the penny on the tread. So how do you do this? For example, this tire just flat out is not good because, so here's the penny. The idea is you should be able to put the penny in the tread like that and it should reach Lincoln's head. Now for this tire it does not either. So this tire, even though you can see a lot of tread on it, does not work. This one certainly doesn't work. This is actually an illegal tire because it doesn't have any of this tread on it. It's completely worn out. So this one's completely illegal and it could actually, explode on you if you were driving on it. This one is okay. You shouldn't drive on this tire, but you could if you needed to for a little bit until you can afford to buy tires or whatever. And then this tire, it's a little different looking tire, but when you do the Lincoln's head thing, you put it in there and it sticks right in there and it touches Lincoln's head. So you can see it disappear on there. And if we go to my Blazers tires, it'll show you even better. I stick it in there like that and you can see there's a lot of tread still left on these tires. So these tires are good. Complete junk, pretty much junk, good. So that's pretty much your tire, how to check your tire tread. Then, when we talk about air pressure on tires, there's two different ways you can check your tire pressure. So most new cars, they either have it right here, or they'll have it along the door here, or down here. But it'll tell you the load that the tire should have on it, the tire size, the rim size, so the size of your wheel, and then the PSI or the European version of it, which we will talk about. But it'll say it all right here, which is kind of hard to read on this. So if it is like that on your car, what you can do is your tires will actually say on them. So right here it says the max load of the tire, and then it tells you what's the max PSI for this tire, which is 50 PSI at cold. So that means when you haven't been driving on it, it's 50 PSI at cold. That's how you read that, which that pretty much means that you should put 35 pounds of air in this tire probably. That's pretty much what this tire should run at, and that's what I run this tire at. And that's typically what I run all of our street tires on. But if you want to figure out your tire size on it, it says it right here. You can see it's a number it's typically a 31. This one's a 31 by 10.5 R15, which that's just the number which tells you the size of the tire. But we won't get into what those numbers mean, but that is the size of your tire. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is the fluids that are in your engine transmission area. So first off, the engine oil is always it's typically a red handle for the dipstick. And for this particular truck, which it's actually diesel, it's right here. You can see it way down in there, right there. So right here, it's a little red handle. You pull that out, and then the first thing you would do is you would wipe off your dipstick tube completely, get it completely clean, and you can see on there it says add 1 quart and then full, and then use a specific engine oil for this. And this is a diesel, so they're talking about using diesel oil for this. So you put it back in, all the way in and you pull it all the way back out, and that gives you the level of fluid that you have in your engine itself. So right now it's right there, so you can see where it's clean, and you can see where the oil is. So then you see where that is, and then you go like that, and you can see that it's over full. Well, it's a little bit over full, which is fine. The next thing we're going to talk about is the color of that oil. So see how black it is? Now for a diesel, that's okay because diesels are completely different the way they function. So their oil gets black within about probably 500 miles. They get really black, so you can't really tell. But for normal gasoline engines and stuff, that's not what oil should look like. This oil, now there's a little bit of stuff in it, but this is the oil that I put in this engine. That's clean oil. That's what oil should look like when you first put it in the engine, and it should just get a little bit darker. And you should change your oil every 5,000 miles or so. That's 5 to 10,000 miles. That's where you should change your oil. But you check it off of that color. So the darker it gets is when the more the engine uses the oil. So by the time it gets browner or like really brown or dark, almost a black color, that's when you should definitely change your oil. Do not let your oil get black. So the next thing we're going to talk about, I'm going to put this back in there. I struggle. Okay, there we go. So that's back in there. The next thing we're going to talk about is your transmission fluid. So the transmission fluid typically is on either in a dipstick tube that's back here on the left, and for this truck it's perfectly up on the top like right here. So you pull that out like that, and it's the same idea as the other one. And how you check this one, so you can see transmission fluid is actually a red color. So this is still clean oil, you can tell. And all transmission fluid is the same between a diesel or a gas engine. It does not matter. And how you check transmission fluid is you actually have the truck running, or your car running, and you pull the dipstick tube out, and you do the exact same thing we did with the engine oil, but you do it while it's running, and that'll give you your actual hot at the temperature transmission fluid level. I know this is full, so don't worry about that, but that's how you do it. You start the truck or car, and then you pull your dipstick tube out, and then you clean it off like we did with the engine oil, and then you read the numbers on it and see where it's at. That's transmission fluid. The transmission fluid when you first get it is like red. It's like a really clean red, kind of like this red almost. And it'll get darker and darker, and it'll get brownish, blackish, and that's the absolute longest you should like leave it in there and before you should change your transmission fluid, which that's a whole different story, but we're not going to talk about that. The next thing is your water coolant or antifreeze, your coolant levels. So typically, here's your radiator right here. It'll always be on the front, and it'll most likely always be on the side here, on the middle, the right, or you're going to have a specific little reservoir to put coolant in it. So for this one, it's a typical one like that. And down in there you can see, I don't know, you can't really see far down in there, but this one's different because it doesn't need a whole lot of coolant, but what you want to see is have it all the way up to the top and to where it's about right there. As well as, if you don't have it already in your car, it's always a good idea to run antifreeze, which it either comes in a bottle like that, container like this, which that's a mixture of water and antifreeze, or it'll come in a container, wherever the other container is, there it is, like that, which that's a full on antifreeze, and it's this color. It's actually green, and when you see your coolant in your radiator, it should be a greenish color when you use that. And why you use antifreeze is during the winter, your car gets cold, and if you have literally just water in it, the water freezes at 32 degrees, and if it gets below 30 degrees, the water will actually freeze in your engine block, and it can actually crack your engine block. So what the antifreeze does is it lowers your freezing point for the water, So then the more you add in it, the lower the temperature, the freezing point for your water and your coolant gets. So then that way, when it gets down to 20 degrees at night, which it doesn't really happen that much here, but if you live somewhere else, that's a big deal. A lot of times in places like North Dakota or places like that, they run almost exclusively antifreeze or something like that. As well as antifreeze helps keep rust and keep your engine from rusting. So at some point in this engine's life, someone wasn't running antifreeze, so you can see rust around this kind of stuff, and it's really hard to get that out of your system. So that's why that's that color. It doesn't mean that there's not antifreeze in there now, but it means that someone at some point was running just water and the engine was rusting a little bit. So it doesn't hurt anything, but it makes your coolant that color. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is batteries and how to jumpstart your car if your battery decided to die, or if someone's battery died in the parking lot because they left their lights on, or whatever happened, then their battery died and they can't start their car. They need a jumpstart. So what you're going to do, how you do this, is you always look for the battery, and there's always going to be a positive or a negative, and you can always tell if the battery doesn't have it labeled on it. The red cable is 99% of the time is going to be the positive, and the black is going to be the ground. So the ground is literally completing the circuit, and this is the 12 volts for the car. So what you do is you have jumper cables like this, and how you use jumper cables is, if we're going to be jump starting a battery, this is going to be the dead battery side, and this is going to be the good battery that we're going to be starting the car with. So what you do first is you put the positive, this is the red one, on the red, so it's red on the dead. That's how you would try to remember that. So red on dead, and then you put red on the good battery. So you put the positives on first, because they do not do anything until they have the grounds on. So unless they have the ground, both grounds are on the batteries, there's no voltage, there's no current going through either of them because the circuit isn't completed. The next thing you do is you put the black on the good battery, and then you put the black on the bad battery. So that's completing the circuit right there, but it's still not completing this circuit. And we don't know this battery fully, so that's why you put this on second, because we know this battery is good. So you put this one on second, and this will then complete the circuit. So then there's going to be 12 volts going through these cables to this battery. And then what you do is you start this car, and then you let this car run for a little bit, and then you try to start this car. That's pretty much the way you do this. And then you do the exact same thing once this car starts in reverse. So then what you would do is you pull this ground off, then you pull this ground off, then you pull this positive off, and you pull this positive off. That's the sequence of doing that. So you do the exact same thing the way you put them on in reverse. So the positives come off last, because if you took the positives off first and you did this with them, that's when you get arcs and sparks, or you touch any kind of metal with this, that's when there's going to be arcs and sparks, and you can potentially start a fire. You don't want to do that. And at that point, because this car started, there's going to be 12 volts in this battery, so it doesn't matter which red you pull off. If you pull those off first and you touch any kind of metal, there can be an arc and a spark. So that's why you always pull the grounds off first, because then you break the circuit, you break that cycle. So then it's perfectly safe for you to pull these off. So you pull grounds off and then the positives off. So that's how that works. If you're putting them on the car, red on dead, red on good, black on live, black on dead. And then pulling them off, and it's black on live now, black off live, and then it's red and red. It doesn't really matter at that point which red you take off first, because the circuit's broken. So that's kind of how that works. I think that's pretty much it. So to recap everything that we just talked about, in our little 10-minute spiel. Never let your tires get like this. Whatever dummy did this, don't be like that dummy. I'm dummy. Don't do that. This one you should absolutely change when it gets this bad, because there used to be a groove like this in the middle of this tire, and now there's not. This is a little bit different looking of a tire, but the tread like this, how it's nice and uniform, all the grooves and stuff are still in it. That's how a tire should look like. And then after driving a little bit, this is still a good tire, so you can still see some of the grooves are starting to go away on it, but overall it's still, I mean, there's still a lot of tread in here, there's still a lot of tread in all of that. So those are good tires still. And the whole purpose of tire tread, if you don't know what tire tread actually does, if you look at tire tread, you see how it's all connected like this? So the whole idea of this is to get water out from underneath the tire. So in the rain, you need to have those grooves cut out in the tire, so that way when you're in the rain and you don't displace water and you don't hydroplane. Because this tire, obviously for a number of different reasons, is bad, but there's no grooves in this, so if you hit a big puddle on this will actually go up on top of the water, and then you would start spinning because you lost contact with the ground, and that's not good. That could lead to a lot of accidents and you getting hurt. This one's still not good because there's not a groove in the middle, and you have this much of a patch, which is about 1.5 inches of tire tread in the middle or tire in the middle that has no tread. So this could get up on top of the water, and then you'd have no traction, and you couldn't be able to stop, and you could rear end someone, or worse, you can run off the road or anything. That's why you want to make sure you have enough tread throughout your tire to be able to displace water and let your tire work for you. Give you a little bit better of a chance. And when you're checking your tire tread, the good trick is the Lincoln, and if it gets to the head of the penny, the head of Lincoln, that's going to be good. So that's enough tire tread on your tire. Obviously, if you go to these tires, here's okay. I mean, well, so you can see right there, it just barely touches. It's kind of hard for you to tell, but it just barely touches. If you go on here, obviously not. If you go here, there's obviously no way. If you go on this tire, there's a lot of tread still there because this is a brand new tire, but there's a lot of tread on that tire. And if you go on this tire, there's a lot of tread left on that tire. So these are both good tires. So, and then talking about oil, your motor oil is always going to be a yellow or a red stick, and then the transmission fluid's always going to be back there. Your coolant's always going to be up in the front. It'll always be labeled like this. Yeah, so I think that's pretty much it. So if you guys have any other questions, be sure to leave in comments, or email us or ask us or whatever, and we can explain anything else any other questions, or if I didn't explain anything as much as you'd like, we can definitely discuss it at some point, whenever, either in class if we have class again this semester or not. Otherwise, we'll have a more in-depth conversation on this at some point later. And until then, hope you guys have a good rest of your week.